Hey everyone, welcome to this new um, segment we're going to be doing on YouTube. Moving the technology segments, the rants on my other account. So we're going to be doing a lot of TV recaps of some of my favorite shows. So let's get to it. The first, I'm going to be doing the Vampire Diaries from now on. I'm replacing the Vampire Diaries recap to our friends. So I'm going to be doing them on here instead of writing them down. So let's tell the audience here on YouTube what happened on the episode 8 of the CW's Teenage Vampire Diaries drama. Last episode we saw Kathleen was entombed by Damon, but before he closed the door, she said Elena was in danger. And then, of course, when Elena left that party, a masked partygoer grabbed her. Now, let's get to the episode from last night. This partygoer had taken off his mask and drove her to a black SUV parked in the middle of nowhere. He was a sunglass man. Well, a sunglass man in the SUV rolled down his blacked out windows a little bit and asked if the kidnapper did what he asked. He said yes and opened up the trunk, where Elena was knocked out and transferred to the back of the SUV. The SUV man told the kidnapper that there was one more thing and told the kidnapper to come closer. Finally, the SUV guy lunged at the kidnapper's neck, sucked his blood, and threw his body out onto the ground. Okay, so that established that the kidnapper wasn't a vampire, but the guy he gave Elena over to was, and we're going to get more into this character a little bit. Vamp guy drove onto an abandoned mansion in the middle of nowhere. He smelled Elena's runes and was going to taste them, but a female vampire told him to back off. Now, this is Rose, who debuted as a character last night. She is a spiky-haired Australian vampire. The other guy was Trevor, and they were 500 years old and running from the original vampires. Elena asked them what they wanted, and Rose filled her in. Basically, Katharina pets her over. Kathleen was the first doppelganger. The doppelganger breaks the curse with their blood sacrifice, but Trevor couldn't resist and turned Kathleen into a vampire, thereby not allowing the sacrifice because it has to be human, and the originals have been on their trail ever since. So now that they found Elena, they summoned Elijah, who is an original, to give over Elena as their ticket to paying off their mistake and not having to run anymore. So let's get into what also happened. Meanwhile, back in Mystic Falls, Germany saw that Elena didn't sleep in her bed the night before at school. He asked Stefan about it, and when Stefan said he wasn't with Elena either, the two decided something fishy was going on. So they asked Bonnie to help them. They used Jeremy's blood since he's related, which is true since Elena's real father was Uncle John Gilbert to begin with from last season's Vampire Diaries, to track Elena's whereabouts on a Virginia map. Basically, Bonnie's spell took Jerem's blood and it moved to where Elena was, which was in the middle of nowhere about 300 miles away. Stefan told Jeremy it was too dangerous to go, so Jer stayed behind reluctantly. Bonnie wiped away some blood that started to come out of her nose, so basically you're like, what the hell just happened? Stefan went and told Damon they both decided to take a road trip there. Damon revealed that Caroline had told him Elena was in danger, but he brushed it off, as we saw from last episode. But they decided not to go ask Kathleen about it because they didn't want her they didn't want to owe her a favor, and Bonnie said she couldn't break the spell to let her out anyway. On the way down the road, Damon drank some blood from a blood bag and offered some to Stefan. Stefan took a sip and said he had been building up his tolerance by drinking from Elena. Damon smirked that it was romantic. Damon also had a strangely lumpy Frankenstein monster forehead going on too. It was it Botox? He could move his eyebrows and forehead. In any case, it really was distracting from his normally gorgeous feature that we see with Damon. Back in Jeremy's room, at G's Gaber, he told Bonnie how he satellite mapped Elena's location of a house in the middle of nowhere and sent it to Stefan. Bonnie said she wanted to try to get a note to Elena. So Jer got E's hairbrush and a candle. Bonnie wrote the note and crumbled it up. Then she started chanting under her breath and held the crumpled note over the candle flame. Her nose started bleeding and Jeremy got freaked out and started shaking her, but Bonnie held on until the note went up in flames, and then she passed out. When she woke up, she told Jeremy that witches weren't invincible. It said so in her spell book. So in any case, let's move on here. At this abandoned mansion in the middle of nowhere that they were talking about during the show, Elena went back to the couch after she got the 411 from Rose. She sat down and saw the note. It said that Steph and Damon were on their way. Love, Bonnie. Rose and Trevor heard a knock, and Rose went to open the door, and there was Elijah. His character basically is sort of Eastern European looking and totally sarcastic and sinner. Rose revealed that they had something he was looking for, and he replied that it better be good to be summoned to such a horrible house. So Elijah saw Elena and didn't believe she was human until he went over and sniffed her. Elena tried to save herself by telling Elijah she knew where the moonstone was. Elijah looked at Rose and she said that it was the first she heard of it. Elena then told Elijah that she would take him to the moonstone location but wouldn't tell him where it was. Elijah tried to compel her, but she saw that her vermeil necklace got in her way. Then he ripped it off her neck, and she told him the moonstone was in the tomb under the church. Then Trevor apologized for turning Caroline in. Elijah said he forgave him. Both Rose and Trevor seemed relieved, but then Elijah hit Trev so hard, Trevor was decapitated. So apparently vamps can die by being decapitated too. Rose was traumatized. Then they heard noises. Stefan and Damon showed up and ran around them, all with their super fast running. After a brief battle, where he saw that a romaine bomb to Elijah's face only crippled him momentarily, and his burned up skin remarkably turned normal looking in like 3 seconds, I believe. Somebody's gonna have to time this. Damon staked Elijah to the door. Elena ran down the stairs to a hopeful looking Damon, but Stefan got in the way, so she hugged him first. But she looked up at Dee and mouthed, "Thank you," and he mouthed, "You're welcome." They brought Elena back home, where she embraced Bonnie, who she thanked for the note, and then Jeremy, who sort of gave her a non-sisterly hug and kiss on the neck. Now let's get into the Caroline situation here, because she does get involved last night in the Vampire Diaries. Caroline had filled in Damon on how Tyler transformed. His eyes got all ambery, she said, and Damon warned her not to be friends with him. At school, Tyler wanted to know why Caroline got involved with covering up what happened to the drunk and now dead girls at this masquerade ball. Caroline tried to brush him off, and we saw him struggle with his super strength at school. He broke the lock on his locker. He could now sink a basketball and kick a garbage can into a car. When he got into her face one too many times, she used her vamp strength to wrestle and flip him to the ground. Back at our house, she confronted her and said he figured out that she was like him, a werewolf. She laughed at him, and when she wouldn't back down, she vamped out at him. He asked her if she was the only vamp, and she said yes. Basically lying. We already know the other two vampires in town are Damon and Stefan. Then she asked him if he was the only werewolf, and he said it was him and his uncle Mason, who of course is dead. Then he said he was scared about turning during the next full moon because he didn't know what was going to happen. At the Salvatore mansion, Rose showed up and informed Stefan and Damon that the originals would now be looking for them, and that they all worked for Claus. Later, Stefan apologized to Damon for making him turn and asked Damon to forgive him. Stefan revealed that he didn't want to be alone. So Elena prepared to go to bed, but Damon was waiting for her in her bedroom. He had her vervain necklace but didn't give it to her right away. He told her that he loved her and that she deserved to be with Stefan, so he was going to unselfish and let them be together. Then he compelled her, put a necklace on, and flew out the window. Elena was left there with the necklace on and the curtain blowing. Back at the abandoned house, in the middle of nowhere, Elijah was still staked to the door. Then his arms moved. He unstaked himself. Like, for me, I was like, what the fuck just this happened? I mean, this guy was already dead. I thought this guy was dead, but apparently he's still alive. This guy is still around, and then he turned from blue-faced dead vamp to rosy skin alive vamp. So that's what happened on the episode of the Vampire Diaries last night. Next week's episode, which is going to be called Katrina or Katharina, Caroline tells Elena how to get out of being the sacrifice and offers Elena her blood. So, should be another good Vampire Diaries next week. Also, ratings did come out, and they went down just by a 0.1%, and that's very good. I mean, Vampire Diaries usually, they rank, when it comes to the ratings, right around the 3.5, 3.6 range. So, they got some pretty good numbers last night, and you know, right now, according to TV by the Numbers, because I check every Tuesday night to see where they are when it comes to the renew or cancel list, they're going to be automatically renewed next season. They are still one of the hottest shows on TV right now, and you know, right now CW must be patting their heads on their back because they got a hit. So until then, next video I will be back talking about The Walking Dead. That'll be probably tomorrow, the first episode, my recap of the first episode of The Walking Dead. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.